Man, oh man, if you've missed parts 1 and or 2 of this series against the Spurs, you have really missed out on what has been an incredible series up to this point. Today, we will figure out who will ultimately come out victorious. The Venom need to win only one more game to reach the finals. Meanwhile, if the Spurs can win 2 in a row, they will take our place instead. Meanwhile, out east, the Pistons and the Heat, the 1 and 2 seeds, are going to go to 7 games to decide who will go to the finals as well. This conference finals matchup week has been pretty insane. I can only imagine what podcasters would be talking about who did NBA stuff. This has been high-level basketball. I'm excited to see who comes out on top. Let's go ahead and find out now. So let's get Game 6 officially underway. I think this is probably our best chance to clinch that NBA Finals spot. We're winners of 2 straight. We are at home. The crowd is behind us. We've got the momentum. Let's see if we can finish this team off. So many close games. I can really see this going either way here in Game 6, and if necessary, Game 7. Weber starts us off hot, getting a block on Carter Bryant. Now Wemby's going to isolate against Will Burke, and wasn't easy, but he eventually was able to free himself up for the layup. Jarris Walker, the first one on the board for Las Vegas in the game. Berg, tough layup around Jonathan Outlaw. But Outlaw not quite as lengthy as Wemby, so an easier man to get a shot off against, as we now have Greg Weber putting up some points. A couple of nice plays from Greg here early. Wemby gets that shot to go. All 4 points from San Antonio, courtesy of the big man here, who gets the stop there. Burke trying to go for his post go-to shot, and in transition, Outlaw running the court, and he gets fed the ball inside. Walker running the pick and pop, finds Will Burke. Too much space left for him by Wemby on that one. Pick and pop now, San Antonio. Wemby trying to go right back and get his revenge for that shot, and he does. Double team comes, grab Weber, looking for his second 3-point shot, and he finds it. 14-9 early here. So we are approaching the halfway point of the quarter. Nearly stolen by Wemby. Instead, Burke's going to lay it in. Walker on the wing. Tried to force it inside. This time Wemby steps in front of the pass, and Harper all alone. I mean, technically he wasn't alone. There were more Spurs players around him, but nobody on the Vegas side able to run the court in time, as Wemby gets excellent positioning on Burke inside. Making it for an easy pass, and that's a tough look by Burke. Wemby with another stop. Harper with another dunk in transition. And our lead has diminished down to 1. Finley on Wemby. We saw that too much in Game 5. I don't think we need to see that anymore, especially when Will Burke is actually on the court. That's a good cut by Irving, and the find was perfect. Hitting him in stride, Jack Finley. Fader from Wemby. Looking like a wide open one due to the size mismatch there. Burke backing him down, goes to the drop step and powers it over. Wembanyama down low. I think he's gotten sick of those Wemby blocks, and that one's stolen, trying to find the open man off the double team. Vassell finds Bryant. Perfectly executed fast break there by the Spurs. Burke gonna drive it inside on Wemby. Gets blocked again. Running it are the Spurs, and they have taken advantage of our mishaps here. A lot of their offense coming in transition in this first quarter. Jack Finley, a tough matchup there against Castle, but he was able to get to the rim and finish with the offhand there. So, final shot of the quarter is going to be a deep heave from Castle, but the Spurs have built a 4-point lead. We got a lot of turnovers and blocked shots in that first quarter, only scoring 22. Nixon checks back in here to start the second quarter. And it's another transition basket for San Antonio. They're killing us in that area here to kick this game off. There's Vassell. Almost recovered from his minor injury. He might be perfectly healthy for Game 7, but we'll have to see if we even get there. Vassell, already his second triple of the quarter. But it's been slow going offensively once again. We're nearing the halfway point, and we've only put up 4 points in the quarter until that Nixon midi jumper. Inside, forced it to Webb, and it's picked off by Vassell. Harper elects to give a teammate a chance at a fast break dunk instead of doing it himself this time. Inside, good find by Nixon, as Finley had gotten positioning on Castle. Wemby to Harper. Has enough space to fire it up and in, and it's a 10-point ball game here. At least our offense has started to pick things up a little bit. Burke got Wemby to bite on that second pump fake. Got him the space he needed to lay it in. Nixon inside. Finds Weber in the corner. No good on a great look. Luckily, we had Will Burke with great positioning inside for the second chance opportunity. Irving thought about firing, pump faked it a couple times before firing it out to Nixon, who gets another mid-range jump shot to go. But as you can see, he's just 2 of 8 for us so far in this game. Not what we were hoping for, as Harper's physical driving works out for him there. Harper, this time beyond the three-point line again. Harper heating up here, 15 points in that first half for a guy who we've been able to keep relatively in check for the most part in this series. But a player of his caliber, you know you can't keep him down forever, as Nixon forced to put up something late in the shot clock, and he drilled the long two. And stepping out of bounds, Wemby with 2.5 seconds remaining. Good defense there by Will Burke to make sure we get this stop, but unless we can come up with a good shot in 2 seconds, which CPU never really does here at the end of these half situations, we will be trailing by 8 heading into the break. Just not good enough offensively. I think holding the Spurs to 50 at the half is good enough on that end of the court, but we got to start hitting some shots. Burke, 50%. And even looking at this, other than Nixon, not a lot of people below 50%, or if they are, they're not down by much other than Nixon, of course. We have had a lot of turnovers, though, as well, which hasn't helped our point total. Take care of the ball. Find good looks here. Nixon. Fade away from the post. We'll take that. Bounce pass now to Burke. He's got a couple seconds left to fire. He just hands it off to Nixon, who gets to the rim. That was kind of a bad possession that ended up with a solid result in the final couple seconds there. The double comes, and up top for Jarris Walker. Comes skying in off the double team, and a bad pass by Nixon. That's the turnover problem we had in the first half, leading to a lot of transition stuff for the Spurs, and this time they get it on the second chance, but still an opportunity created off of a turnover. Will Burke looked like he barely needed to leave his feet for that dunk. Walker against Castle. So far, I think that matchup has gone decent enough. I think it was a good suggestion in the comments after part 1 of this series. Rebound goes to Burke. Irving pushing it ahead to Jarris Walker, who flushes it home with 2 hands, and we've got ourselves a 2-point ball game now. Offense looking better here, and Irving, long 2 won't fall after passing the ball around the horn, and Steph Castle yams it all over Jack Finley in transition. My goodness. Oh, Castle driving, man, has been such a pain, but Irving has a breakaway in the fast break, but he decides to lay it in instead of dunk it. I mean, not what you'd expect from a LeBron James comped player, at least sailing-wise, but this counts the same too, of course. Solid look from Nixon on the top of the key three. He's not going to go. Outlaw gets around Irving. And it's more the same, this up-tempo. I mean, San Antonio's really trying to get everything they can in transition, because otherwise their offense has been pretty stymied by our defense. But they are creating transition opportunities at a much better clip than we are. But that is a great effort from Finley, staying with Carter Bryant, getting in position for the block. Not bad for a guy who's probably at this point our worst defender, at least among the guards and wings. Could argue about some interior defenders here, but an and one for Jarris Walker. 66-60 here. Under 4 minutes remaining in the third. Wemby has J. Will on him for the easy basket. Now feeding him again in the post. Fader falls in for Wemby. Back up to a double-digit lead. We had trimmed it down all the way to one possession, and that's a good find. The cut from Nixon, hit in stride by Finley. Avdia takes a screen from Wemby, pulls up short mid-range, rattles it in response. Williams trying to go at Wemby, not really gonna get you much, and then turns it over off the pass. Not a great look for Jay Will there, and then Nixon's just gotta guard up a little bit closer there to Dylan Harper. You give him space, he's gonna be firing in threes, but we respond courtesy of Jarris Walker, who's having himself a nice little game here. Nixon in the corner, there's 3 more. Down to 30 seconds left in the third. 7-point ball game. Harper extends it back to double digits. A lot of threes on both ends here. Looking for one more with Paris Webb. Not going to fall in the final couple seconds of the third. So we've got a 10-point deficit to erase. Still 68 points after 3 quarters. Not accustomed to our offense struggling this much. Nice feed inside. Burke with the reverse slam. Pick and roll. Vassell to the rim, and an acrobatic finish around the Jalen Williams foul. And what was that pass from Finley? Just no chance that that got to Will Burke there. And Weber, you just can't foul though. That is his 4th, although not the most concerned about him fouling out. If that were to be the case, it would probably just mean Jack Finley would be in our closing lineup. Vassell catching fire. Another one up and in, and the lead continues to grow. Another turnover. Just forcing the ball inside when there's nothing there. That's kind of just what you get with these sliders sometimes, but it's been so bad in this game. Nixon off the catch. I mean, we need to start scoring and scoring fast. We also need to start getting some stops, which you're not going to do on that possession. Irving on the wing. Nixon fires up another one. He's trying to keep us in this game, courtesy of the 3 ball. Here he fires up another one. This time it's too long, though. Pushing it ahead. Castle with the lay-in. It's not always even just off turnovers. They are pushing off of misses. Doing so at a great rate. Nixon had a couple of threes. I don't blame him at all for just continuing to fire them up, but ultimately we just did not do much offensively in this game. Only 90 points when all is said and done. We gave up 119 on the other end. So ultimately when it's all said and done, our defense didn't do all that good either. 119 is quite a lot to give up, but that means we're going to game 7 here. Where did we go wrong? We got 25 and 9 from Nixon, but 3 turnovers from Nixon, 4 from Burke, 3 from Finley, 2 from Walker, 1 from a few other players. I mean, 8 of 10 from Jarris Walker. He played well in this game. You don't want to waste a good Jarris Walker game. That's exactly what we did, because Nobody else really came to play. I mean, 22 for Burke. I think that's his lowest of the series. Although I can't say for certainty that's the case. But Dylan Harper played great for San Antonio in this game. Wemby had 8 stocks to go along with 8 assists, 19 rebounds, 28 points. Castle was solid. They just really didn't have anybody play bad. And the big change was that Colin Sexton, 0 minutes for San Antonio. And I think that helped them out, especially defensively. So the biggest move for San Antonio for Game 6 was that they removed Colin Sexton from the rotation. He was just somebody that we could attack pretty easily on the offensive end, whether it was Weber or whoever it was that was on him. They removed that ability to attack, and they went down to a 7-man rotation. Do we consider doing something similar for Game 7? The player that you'd probably remove would be Jalen Williams, but unless you're comfortable having Jarris Walker play 9 minutes at center, which honestly I think he'd do probably a pretty similar job to Jalen Williams at center, if I'm being honest. If we take a look, let's see. So we have 6'9" from Jalen Williams. I'm pretty sure it's a 7'1" wingspan. And Jarris Walker 6'7" with a 7'2" wingspan, if I have those numbers memorized correctly. But in terms of post defense, we have very similar, a slight edge to Walker there. In terms of rebounding, we have B for Jarris Walker, and we have A- for Jalen Williams. I am worried about the rebounding with Burke off the court. We kind of generally struggle there, so I don't know if I want to take rebounding away, and I don't know if the difference between Walker and Williams really warrants taking him out of the rotation here. I think the Spurs had a very easy answer to take over the Sexton minutes. I don't think there's really an easy answer to take over the Jalen Williams minutes. The other player that could be considered for this is Paris Webb. We'll take a look at the stats at the end of this series, but Paris Webb just really hasn't been very good this series. But I don't think it's been to the point where he needs to sit either. So I don't think we have the same caliber of move as the Spurs here to remove a player from our lineup. I honestly think the strategy that we've been employing has been the right way to go. We've had a big variety of games. I know we just come off a big loss, but that loss was using the same strategy as all the other games. And honestly, I just think we need better play from some of our players, including, Ken Nixon really struggled to shoot the ball in this game, particularly in the first half. Just couldn't get it going. We just need better games there to give ourselves a chance. And I think changing strategies isn't going to... There's not a strategy that I can think of right now to really change, to give us an edge. We just got to play to our potential. Meanwhile, out east, the Miami Heat have beaten the Detroit Pistons in Game 7. 125-110 was the Game 7. Cade dropped 32. Jaren Jackson Jr. dropped 28, but it wasn't enough for Detroit. They got 27 from each of Hero and Paul, including 12 assists for Brook Paul as well. 18 from Adebayo, 15 from Desmond Bane. Good all-around performance. And the Miami Heat, led by Brook Paul, will be the Eastern Conference representative. They're definitely one of, if not the best team in the East this year. So I think that's a good result for the East. I thought Detroit also played really well this year. So would have been very deserving had they won Game 7 as well. Definitely, I think the two strongest performances in the East this year. Maybe you could have thrown Washington there, but they lost pretty handily to the Heat in the second round. So only one could make it. Not surprised it is Miami this season. If we were to win this game, having Brook Paul versus Will Burke in the finals in just their third season. That would be really fun. But it's time to find out if that's going to be a reality or if we're going to fall one game short of a finals appearance. I would have loved to win Game 6. A series that's been this good, it just feels right that it goes to 7 games. On the bright side, the Spurs are only 1-2 at home in the series. So are we, unfortunately. But the home court advantage hasn't really been much of a factor so far in this series. If you want to be on the pessimistic side, though, it is hard to imagine this caliber of Spurs team going 1-3 at home in a series. One of those has to give here in Game 7. Which one's it gonna be? The Euro step inside from Carter Bryant is the first basket of this one. Ooh, the step back from Nixon shakes. Steph Castle drops him for the first basket. Castle trying to get his revenge, but it's blocked by Jarris inside. That's why we put him on him for that inside defense. The fancy pass from Burke to find Irving in the corner. I'm liking this start. Bryant, top of the key, drills his second shot of the ball game to tie us up at 5. Nixon to the rim, puts it in. We'd like to see a more efficient first half from Nixon than we got in Game 6, of course. That back down from Outlaws, something I think they probably could have unlocked a little bit more throughout this series, but I'm glad they haven't, and I hope they don't do it all that much here today either. Irving finds a wide open Walker beyond the three-point line. Harper, defended by Nixon. The step back gives him space, and he fires in a triple. Now it's Nixon going against Castle. Ooh, the crossover. Got him to the rim for the layup. I'm liking this assertiveness from Nixon and the dribble moves that have been working on Castle. Despite that, we still trail by 3 here, though, of course, still very early. The steal by Walker. Nice to see us doing the ones. Us being the ones doing damage in transition here. Castle. Pick and pop to Outlaw. Great look, but the big man can't hit it. Weber with the rebound goes all the way down the other end of the court and scores it in the mid-range. Using the step back to shake his defender. Castle, a misfire from deep. Vegas running again. This time it's inside to Will Burke with the reverse slam. Nixon inside to Walker. Excellent execution of the pick and roll. Now the Spurs are going to try it. Avdia fires after his defender went under the screen. Finley. Tough mid-range jump shot, but skying in is Jarris Walker. Like what I'm seeing from Jarris in this episode, that's for sure. Irving snags the board, pushes it ahead to Finley with the layup. That was a great feed from Connor Irving. No nickname for him yet. Don't really know if I've found one that fits. Finley for 3 in transition. I'm definitely liking the fact that we're actually making plays in transition instead of just it being used as a weapon against us. But my goodness, Carter Bryant, I mean, Jack Finley's had a tough episode. He's gotten yammed on twice now, at least defensively. He's been doing his thing offensively, but Carter Bryant, his best quarter by far of this series, comes here in Game 7. Usually you don't expect massive contributions from the role players. Burke got a point-blank shot at the rim, but it's never easy with Wemby around. So we're tied after one. Nixon, step back. Got Harper to stumble. Bryant, he's been excellent. Continues to produce here to start the second quarter. Inside, Finley off the cut. Vassell a little bit slow. Now Vassell is fully healthy for Game 7 here. He did recover from his minor injury. Not that it really seemed to slow him down much, and he finds Outlaw there. I actually think that might have been Harper. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Outlaw, wide open off the screen. I mean, not a Vegas player in sight when he got to the rim. Nixon, another great job getting an open look in the mid-range. He's been much better here in Game 7 than he was in Game 6. Walker. Probably should have gone to the rim, but we'll take the 2 points from the pull-up Mini J. And Castle got Finley to jump off of the pump fake, and it gave him the leverage he needed to get to the rim. Nixon, just a bad pass, trying to force it to Burke. Stolen by Wemby, and then Harper with a little bit of a shove after the layup. Things getting chippy here, and that's to no one's surprise with how intense this series has been. Still got ourselves a tight one here. 6 points. Finley, no good from 3, but Will Burke skying in for the offensive rebound and putback. Finley gets to the rim and scores it. Harper really never able to recover defensively after going for the steal. The spin by Wemby. And it's blocked by Burke into the hands of Nixon, who has it now. He'll take a screen from Burke. Harper unable to fight through it, and it left Nixon with a 3 that gave us the lead. 44-33. Castle gives it back to San Antonio, though. Nice to see such a tight ball game here in the second quarter. Will Burke left alone off the Greg Weber drive attempt. Inside, Paris Webb takes the pass in stride to the basket. Nixon going to go right back to it with the same result this time. Paris opts for the two-handed slant. Castle with the right. Gets it over Greg Weber by going around him. Castle again, this time all the way to the rim. Irving the nearest defender. Burke, another great look at 3. And for a man who doesn't even have set shot specialist, I think every time Burke takes an open 3, it's going in. Probably could have hit him there too, but I'll take the mid-range jump shot from Nixon instead. The turnaround is no good from Wemby. So the Vegas Venom lead at the half in a 58-54 ball game. Glad to see the offense back on track after struggling really the entirety of Game 6. Castle, leading scorer for San Antonio, but only 4 of 9. The fact that Wemby only has 6 points and 2 of 8, that does worry me for the second half. You're not likely to get the same kind of production from him. It's almost certainly going up. 17 to lead. Our team is Ken Nixon, much, much better than Game 6, which is just what we needed. Here he gets to the rim against Castle. Nice physicality there. Wemby all alone after Jarris failed to steal it. Carter Bryant using the pick and roll, and the defense just in a bad spot there, trailing it. Irving going to go right at Carter Bryant, and that just has been a tough matchup at times, especially on the drive for Irving. A lot of blocked layups in the series. Wemby wide open to give San Antonio the lead back. Nixon. Wide open midi jump shot. Castle looking to respond with a 3 and does just that. What was that pass from Nixon? I don't even understand why you even attempt that pass from Nixon. Lazy passing there. This time he does get the pass to his intended recipient down low. Irving had a step. Castle, another look from 3. Thought about missing it, but instead finds his way home. Jarris with the response. I like that play. It usually gives our guys a good off-the-catch look from the wing. Tough look from Wemby. I mean, Jalen Williams played about as good a defense as possible for him on that shot. Just couldn't get it to go. Finley forced to take a tough three-point shot after the Nixon passes a little off target. Vassell wide open in transition. And the Spurs have built themselves now a 10-point lead. So it's cut into there by Jack Finley. We led at the half, but man, the stops just aren't really coming here in this quarter at all. Nixon trying to put the moves on Harper, and he gets to the rim, spitting and dunking. Nixon, the dribble moves have been on point here in Game 7. I think there's little doubt that he's a Game 7 player. He knows the intensity of what we need from him. And Jarris Walker to the rim, the cradle dunk. I love it when he pulls that out. We've got a couple of really highlight dunks in a row here. But the 3 from Vassell makes it back to 10 points. Nixon, spin move. Great job by Frozone Nixon. Tough fade away from Wemby. Not going to go. Jarris pushing it ahead to Jalen Williams inside. Wemby finds the cutter. It's a give and go by Vassell. Great play. Foul by Finley. And then just nobody there to defend Wemby. He had a step and ended up getting all the way to the rim for free. But Jarris Walker pays him back by doing pretty much the same thing. 5 seconds left in the quarter. Wemby against Williams. Williams doing a nice job fighting, and he's going to force him not to get the shot off in time. He made it, but the clock had expired, so we trail by 8. Not a good quarter from us, from +4 to -8 at the end of that quarter. And we're getting a foul on Jay Will here to start the 4th. Got to overcome a double-digit deficit. We're certainly capable of it, but Castle just picked Finley's pocket there and had a breakaway lane in the fast break. Outlaw now blocking Will Burke. I don't like the start to this quarter here. Another block for San Antonio. What are we doing? Bryant for 3. What a game from Carter Bryant. A really annoying time for Carter Bryant to wake up and be a good offensive player. Finley really struggling. Another steal from Steph Castle. Rarely do we see people on this team with the blue cold circle, but Finley finds himself in that situation now. Here he finds an open Burke in the corner. Deeply, deeply needed that shot. It brings us down to 15 down. The Spurs just build these leads so quickly, man. Their two-way play can be so impressive at times. It's a tough shot from Burke. He's certainly capable of it. Outlaw to the rim, and that's an and one. Come on, Paris. It's such a tough matchup for Paris going against Jonathan Outlaw. He's given up a lot of size and athleticism in that one, but ends up with a three-point play on the other side. Nixon stolen away again. Bryant to the rack. And we are down by 17. Step back. Nixon doing everything he can here. Burke. And another stolen pass. I mean, the Spurs, they're picking our pockets. They're playing the passing lanes. And there's just nothing we can do to stop them. Steph Castle's hitting threes like that. I mean, what do you want us to do when Steph Castle's hitting threes like that? We get a block by Nixon. Burke, wide open, and it just lays it up. Only 20 points for him now. Another relatively low-scoring game from Will Burke compared to what we are used to. 20 points is still obviously very good, but down 20 with 2 minutes remaining. We are going to lose Game 7, falling behind in the third quarter, and the Spurs just continue to build their lead into the fourth. The Spurs will be the Western Conference Finals champions. It's heartbreaking, man. We had 2 shots at eliminating them, and we couldn't make either of them count. I feel like, the losing player that will stay out on the court or the field and watch the confetti fall for the other team as motivation to get back there next year. I feel like that right now. Watching these Spurs hoist the trophies that I feel like we definitely had a chance to hoist ourselves. We play things a little differently. Maybe if I had schemed things a little better, I don't know. But the Spurs outplayed us easily in both games 6 and 7. I mean, we just started turning the ball over. I mentioned at the very beginning of the series how many steals the Spurs had, and that could be something that they take advantage of on our team. I didn't see it a ton, like a little bit more than average at the start of this series, but man, in this episode, it was very poignant. And I think getting rid of Colin Sexton was a great move by San Antonio. They just started playing so well defensively because they had no bad defenders on the court ever. And we don't necessarily have any bad defenders either. Jack Finley, Paris Webb, and Jalen Williams aren't great. Our bench unit's not great defensively, but I wouldn't say any of them are poor. 5 of 16 from Finley is pretty tough. Nixon did everything he could, a 36-point double-double. Had 4 turnovers there. Another game, just a lot of turnovers on the board. Only 13 shots from Will Burke. Not as aggressive as he usually is. To no one's surprise, it'll be Victor Wembanyama who wins Western Conference Finals MVP, and it is Brooke Paul out in the East. We saw that great double-double he had in Game 7 to propel them to the finals. We will crown a champion here later on in this episode, but before we get there, I do want to go over some postseason stats. As with our season being over, I think it's time to evaluate what we did in year 5. Let's go over some base stats here before we start to maybe jump into some more advanced stats. If we're just looking at the conference finals alone, both of our superstars averaged 30 points a game in 39 minutes. Pretty elite stuff there. 15.6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.7 blocks for Will Burke. We got 35 and 8.5 from Ken Nixon. After that, obviously a pretty big drop-off. No surprise there. Jack Finley is our third leading scorer. Jarris Walker at 4 with 11.7. Then Weber, then Irving, then Webb, then Williams. All the way down at the bottom. These two, very clearly the 2 bottom scorers on the team with 3.1 and 2.1 respectively. If we look at not only volume, but how well people were shooting from the field, Jarris Walker was the most efficient player for us on the squad. 67%. He was absolute nails, including a great Game 7 from Jarris. Will Burke, 61%. Then we're down to 48 with Nixon, which for a guard with as much offensive responsibility and a tough defensive matchup, I think that's still really good for Nixon there. Next up, you have down to 44.6% with Finley, 41% with Weber, and then there were 3 players who were below 40%. And honestly, Paris Webb was a lot worse than this prior to Game 7, but his 4 of 6 performance boosted this up to 36%. Not very good. when you're looking at these three players, I think you can excuse. I mean, Connor Irving is a rookie playing in the Western Conference Finals against, for my money, the best team in the league. I'm going to excuse that for a rookie. If he's doing this next season, I might be a little bit more worried. What I am worried about is our backup front court, though. Both sub 40%. Tough matchup, I know. Jonathan Outlaw and Victor Wembanyama. And then Denny Avdia were the kind of the three guys playing the power forward and center for the Spurs in this series. Tough matchup, at least for Outlaw and Wemby. I think Avdia should be semi-gettable with how he's developed in this series. I know in real life he's playing really good basketball this year, but if you look at 3-point, we pride ourselves on having a team full of 3-point snipers. Jalen Williams wasn't really good at hitting threes. He was 2 of 10 all series. 31% from Greg Webber. That's got to be better. 33% from Webb and Finley. 34.5% from Nixon. He took a lot of tough ones. Irving at 34%. And then Walker and Burke were absolute sniping from three. They don't take a ton. About 4.5 between them per game. But they were making most of them. They really only shoot them when they're wide open. A lot of these other players take more difficult ones. Although, honestly, Webb really never takes difficult threes. Overall, I could say probably the players I'm disappointed in are Webb and Williams. Despite, of course, the tough matchup. Now, for the advanced stats, I do have to look. Actually, one more thing before I get to the advanced stats. Last thing I want to do is plus minus. So Irving ends up being number 1 there. Still at the end of it. Which is good marks for him. We showed that he didn't shoot very well, but honestly, I thought he played pretty good defense for us in the Western Conference Finals, and I think that goes to his highest plus minus on the team. It was Burke for a lot of the series, but it ends up being Nixon at number 2. Burke at number 3, and Jarris Walker. These are our 4 positive plus-minus teams at the end of the series. Then after that, Greg Webber is the smallest negative. Jack Finley, a pretty large jump. Jalen Williams, and then Paris Webb, the largest minus here. Although Jalen Williams did it in fewer minutes, so if you do on a permit, per 36, which we can do right here. That's probably the best one. Then, yeah, he's easily the worst. But I think it was pretty easy to tell kind of who the worst players for us were this series. Even though Finley's plus minus doesn't look good, I think his impact was felt in other ways. If we go just by the full playoffs, I mean, Bobby Portis number 1. If we go to actually people who played, Connor Irving for the entire postseason ends up being our leading plus minus player. Will Burke, second. Ken Nixon, Jarris Walker, Greg Webber. Finley, all positives. And then Paris Webb, only a slight negative. Jalen Williams, the biggest negative there. Now, I will say nobody was a negative plus minus in either of the first 2 series. So there's that. We did a good enough job in the first 2 series that pretty much everybody was successful. Now, if we start to look at some of these advanced stats here, the best player for us in the playoffs was Will Burke. I agree, he was definitely the most consistent. I'd say that game 7 might unfortunately have been one of his worst games in the postseason. He just wasn't aggressive enough. 13 shots just 9 boards. Very uncharacteristic of him. Then you have Ken Nixon. Then the league average is 15, so that's kind of the end of the league average here, and I love how they don't actually sort these correctly. But Jarris Walker at 13.9 was our 3rd best player. Jack Finley, our 4th. Connor Irving, our 5th. Then Paris Webb, Jalen Williams right behind him, and then Greg Weber actually our worst player by PER in the postseason as a whole. I tried to look at this for the conference playoffs, and it just for the conference, these advanced stats, and it broke the game. It like totally froze. So we're looking at this for the entire playoffs rather than just the conference finals here. Very similar ranges here. Instead of Greg Weber, he's not 8th, he's 6th here, and Jalen Williams is at the bottom. And if you look at game score, you have the same bottom three: Weber at 6th, Webb at 7th, and then Jalen Williams at 8th. By a pretty wide margin here between Williams and Webb. So I think there's a consensus based on these stats here that our 3 worst players that were playing for us were Weber, Webb, and Williams. I'd say kind of in this order: Williams worst, Paris Webb second worst, and Greg Weber third worst. There's also a great stat I like to go to: estimated wins added. So this is just comparing you to league average. What did you do for us in the postseason? I mean, Wilburg accounted for 7.5 wins. Ken Nixon accounted for 4. Big drop off, but Jack Finley was an above average player for us. Irving was slightly above average. Jarris Walker was an above average player slightly here. Jalen Williams is only slightly below average by this metric. Weber, a minus 0.6, and Webb, a minus 0.3. So again, we're talking the 3 negative players. There's not a big negative here because EWA, you're not going to usually have massive negatives for just a playoff run, but those are the players that seem to maybe need to improve on. Now, in the case of Weber, I think he's still just a second-year player with room to grow, so I'm not actually concerned about these numbers for him all that much, although the BER is really low. I'm curious as to why he's worse at that metric than he is, in efficiency and game score compared to the rest of the squad, but I just think he didn't shoot it all that well. He definitely had some defensive struggles against Steph Castle mainly. But I still think he's growing. Whereas guys like Webb and Williams didn't really get much better last offseason. In the case of Jalen Williams, he's 27 or 28 now? 27. Gonna be 28 next year. He might go up in like IQ like he did last year, but that's probably it. Paris Webb didn't develop last year pretty much at all, so he might be the player that he is. All that being said, I thought this team was ahead of schedule. I didn't think that year 5 was going to be our year, and yet we were 1 win away from making the NBA Finals and facing a team that I think we would have beat in the Miami Heat. Brooke Paul's a great player, but put Ken Nixon on him, and I'm confident there, and then I don't think anyone else is nearly as big of a threat as even Steph Castle or Dylan Harper, maybe even Jonathan Outlaw. I just think we could have beat the Heat. We'll never know. He'd have played us tough in the past, but we were so close against the Spurs. It's really unfortunate that game 6 and 7 were blowouts after the first 5 games were so good. My immediate reaction, I don't know how much I'll talk about this when I voice over the gameplay later, but I think we just kind of gassed ourselves after game 5. We kind of banded together, put everything we had into winning what looked like maybe an unwinnable situation in game 5, and kind of just looked gassed down the stretch. That being said, we had the lead at half in game 7 and just fell apart in the second half of that game. Now, I've talked about some spots where maybe we can improve, but you can only improve in a draft-only franchise as much as the draft class allows you. I will be doing a draft preview here at the end of this episode, but first we got to crown ourselves a champion here of this 2029-2030 NBA season. And it easily is the San Antonio Spurs. They sweep the Heat. Man, this was a missed opportunity. I think we would have won the finals had we beaten the Spurs. Even though it was ahead of the schedule I thought we would be able to have. That's how close we were, man. I don't know if we would have swept the Heat. Might have been 5, might have been 6, but I think we would have beaten them. And instead, the champion is San Antonio. Our biggest rivals, winning it all. All in all, for this season, I'm proud of this team. We faced 2 69-win teams back-to-back in the playoffs. That is a tough ask for any team, especially a team as young as ours with, honestly, really no playoff experience. We have some. We won the play-in last year, I guess, but then got swept by the Mavericks. To beat the Jazz, who I think are also kind of still a year away, like I thought the Venom would be. The Jazz actually were. 1 win away from potential NBA champions. What could have been? That just makes me even hungrier to come back next year with a better squad to get this team a ring in year 6. Heading now into the offseason, we actually have positive points here. So I'm going to increase the quality of our training facility. That only leaves us 1 point, which doesn't leave us much left available. Let's do some fan night promotions. Shout out to the fans of the Las Vegas Venom. As for some retirements here, Julius Randle, Clint Capella, Anthony Davis could have been an intriguing mentor for us, although I think he was under contract with the Magic. I don't think he would have been a free agent anyway. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, another potentially interesting mentor. Bobby Portis was a mentor for us. Notably, no retirement for Derek White, which I am very happy to see. I think he sees the opportunity to potentially stay 1 more year with the squad and win a championship. Wise decision by him. Bobby Portis did not see the same opportunity, although I think he would have been a free agent anyway. I'm not 100% sure. He might have actually not been. But yeah, it's saying he actually would have been with us 1 more year. I don't know why he didn't want to try to run it back, but hey, I respect the guy doesn't want to do the daily grind of basketball anymore. He's 35 years old. As for Paris Webb, I mentioned earlier that his contract is untradeable because he's on a team option. And I thought that you could accept team options early by manually going into their contracts and essentially just removing the option. I couldn't do that last year, but I think it was because I waited too late. There's a certain point in the off season that you can't edit contracts anymore. And I had just gotten to that point, but I think you can simulate accepting team options early in 2K by just going into a contract. I saw in a Click Productions video him do it. And, you know, I obviously wouldn't do it if it wasn't realistic, but since it is a team option, I can just accept it early. I'm not saying this definitely means Paris Webb will be traded, but I do like the flexibility of prior to the draft having that contract guaranteed. You just remove the option and it becomes just a 1-year contract. So he will be on the books for us and eligible to be traded. Again, not a guarantee he will be, but we'll talk about the draft in just a moment and why I want the flexibility going into it, potentially moving on from Paris Webb. 2 players making it into the Hall of Fame from this retirement class is going to be Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid. No real surprise on either of these selections. Embiid is a tricky one because he's so dominant when he's on the court, but he's missed so much time with injury. They will both also get their jerseys retired. Anthony Davis gets it retired by the Pelicans. Okay. Joel by Philly, who he was there from 2016 all the way to 2029. He played 1 year outside of Philly in his entire career. Whereas Anthony Davis, I guess he just didn't have a super long stint anywhere. New Orleans, I think, ended up actually being his longest stint in this series. So there's that. Kind of a surprise jersey retirement, but not like an extreme surprise, I'd say. Getting now to the off-season meetings, there were actually 2 things approved by the league. Both are interesting. Abolishing the luxury tax, I don't think is a good idea in real life basketball. But as this team's about to get more expensive, it sounds good to me. And I wonder if it's going to make the CPU be more willing to have expensive teams, which I would like just because it keeps the competition up. It was 31-1 approved. I wonder who rejected it. Screw it. I'm going to allow this to stay. If it ends up like really making these terrible, I'll just have it reinstated next year. As for this one, going from 3 seconds to 5 seconds in the key, I mean, I love it for Will Burke. Just being able to camp down in the key. But I don't really want to change basketball that much, I think. I don't want to change the on-court product really much. Changing how the teams build, making them more willing to have expensive rosters, I think makes the league and the series better. Whereas, let's just keep the on-court product the same. Is my thought process behind forcing the reject here and allowing this to go through. But there you have it. I think this is our first league change now. This far into the series, I have considered putting some expansion teams in. I think that might be next off season. Putting some expansion teams into the league, I think could be really fun. Protecting maybe 7 players just to make it a little interesting on us being forced to lose somebody. That's probably when that will happen, if it decides to happen, if I decide to have it happen. I almost put it in for this offseason, but I was too late. So, because it has to be approved in here, and I'll have to manually approve it because most of the time the league rejects expansion if you have it proposed. But look forward to that for next year. That brings us here to Lottery Night. We do not have any horse in this race, so we will just see the results here. The Trailblazers, the Grizzlies, and the Trailblazers again. The Wizards have the 4th pick. Very interesting, but the first 3 picks and 4 out of the first 5 picks are Western Conference teams. So the West continues to not only have an insane top of the league talent, but they're also getting some great young cores. I mean, the Trailblazers having 1 and 3 could be really good for them because they already have some pretty solid pieces in place, but they definitely need more, and they're going to get it here. As for our staff, we have an interesting decision to make here with Cameron McKnight. He's been able to just naturally develop his star ratings up to a 4.5-star defensive coach, 4-star offensive coach. I thought with this impressive run that he did, I'd give him a little bit of a badge boost. So I increased his teacher by 1 tier and his wing whisperer by 1 tier. Just because his star ratings have improved, but his badges don't really develop for coaches in this game. And I thought the team overperforming expectations for a lot of us this year, probably, definitely including myself, earned him a little bit of an upgrade. These are his 5 badges now. I mean, they're the same 5 badges. These 2 just got upgraded by 1 level. So, do we want to extend him? How much would he ask for in an extension at this point? Good questions for sure. And I think I do. Now, here's the thing. The only way to extend a coach is to just manually upgrade his contract. So I think we'll go up to 4 years, and he'd probably demand, we'll say over $9 million. Give him a bit of a pay increase. So Cameron McKnight is here to stay for the long term. I think if we had a disappointing year this year, I probably would have started to think about moving on, but his natural development and this team, the performance of this team this year, earned him that extension. All right, so let's talk about the draft. I previewed it very briefly at the in the middle of the season, and said we'd talk about it more come the off season, and that I wanted to focus on the basketball. And here we are now. We are going to have the off season next episode, so it's time to preview this class, starting with the number one player. I don't know how he's not consensus. Who does Sporting News Big Board that's terrible. He is definitely the best player in this class, and it is Eddie A. Ewing. Pulling up some clips here on Eddie. He is a very good wing player. In this game against Michigan, he flashed a lot of scoring upside, whether it's with the shot, backing down in the post, driving with a variety of different finish packages. He's got good size and athleticism. Definitely more offensive focused than defensive right now, but he certainly has the athleticism and size to become a good defensive player as he continues to grow. Portland, with the number one pick, should surely take this player. I know 2K has some surprises every now and then, but this one should be very easy. Eddie Ewing is going to be an absolute stud in this league. He starts with 5 badges, 6'7", 220 pounds for the 19-year-old here. All-NBA ceiling, doesn't have the Hall of Fame, so it's not as, elite of a pick as we sometimes see at the top of a class, but I mean, 3-level upside. His perimeter defense isn't even all that bad. Deadeye, layup mixmaster, limitless range, post-up poet, and set shot specialist are what he is set to start with here. Badge-wise, going to be an awesome player. Joining our conference, so yippee. And the fact that Portland has 2 of the top 3 picks sets them up for being a good team in the future, maybe replacing one of these more veteran-laden teams like, I don't know, the Warriors probably aren't going to be that good forever. Could the Portland Trailblazers kind of step up and take their place in the upper echelon of the West? I can certainly see that being the case, as they will be adding Eddie Ewing to an already pretty solid young core. Now, the next player in the class, to me, although his ranking doesn't necessarily agree with that, is Chaz Matthews at center. Matthews comes in with a pretty high floor, especially as a defensive anchor. I think he is going to play excellent interior defense. He's got great size and a really good wingspan. He's got a kind of a weird build, kind of high cut. He's got long legs, maybe a little bit more of a shorter torso, but he made a lot of plays defensively down in the paint in the one game that I saw going against Eddie Ewing and Wisconsin. Wasn't super involved offensively, but I think he can be a good pick and roll big who has enough of a range to flash occasional upside. As a shooter, he's not as good as these other, top of the drafts bigs that have come out like Delk and Burke. I don't see him as like a future MVP candidate or anything like that. He's not as versatile as them, but I mean, nothing below a C here, so he's not a kind of a statue interior old school big. He's more of an interior focus, but still modern big. Great IQ, rebounding, interior defense, inside scoring is an A. I don't know why Michigan didn't give him the ball more in the game that I watched, but listed potential isn't amazing, and he doesn't start with any badges, so maybe that's why. But Anthony Davis, All-NBA ceiling. I can kind of see him having a similar type impact to an Anthony Davis, where he's more of an inside the arc player offensively, but a really good defensive anchor. I don't think he's going to go as low as some of these rankings have him. Although one of the drafts has him going at 2, even though they have him ranked at 15, which is odd. So in 2 of these, he's going in the top 4, and I ultimately do think that's where he will go. But Chaz Matthews, 7 foot, 280-pound big man with a 7'8" wingspan, 20 years old. Has a good combination of a good starting point with enough upside to make you really excited that some team is going to add a long-term starting all-star caliber big man to their team. These are two of the players at the top of the board that I don't think really are in play for us. Unless Chaz Matthews does fall. I mean, he'd certainly be an upgrade at backup center. I don't know how long he'd be content being a backup, but I'd definitely take him as a backup center if he falls far enough that we can trade like Jalen Williams for him. Absolutely. Even if it's just a temporary solution and we eventually trade him, because once he develops, he's going to have a lot of trade value. But like I said, I think he's going 2 or 3 in this class, if I'm being honest. Next player to talk about is Tom Nash. If you look at where he is ranked, he is projected to be a top 3 pick by all of the mock drafts right now. Tom Nash, it's kind of the 3rd year in a row that 2K has generated this type of player who's just a dog defender and a very, very good athlete, but very much so a work in progress on the offensive end. You're not really guaranteed any offensive impact from Tom Nash, especially early, but you don't know what he's going to develop into. But he has enough upside that you at least have hope in that area. Now, the way I record prospect clips aren't really meant for him to shine, but what I like about Tom Nash compared to Andrew Zeklin and Matt Barrett, the guys who've been generated in this mold for the past 2 drafts, he's a lot bigger. 6'9", 250 with a 7'5" wingspan. So B interior defense, A- perimeter, A+ physicals, A- potential, and C's across the board on offense. So, I mean, this guy's very comparable in size to Connor Irving. He's 1 inch shorter, pretty much the same weight, and a 1 inch longer wingspan. So if we were to get this guy to play combo forward off the bench, replace a Paris Webb role, we'd be basically trading a skilled player in Webb who doesn't quite have the length and athleticism for a guy who's right now all length and athleticism and very raw in terms of skills. But it's much easier to develop skills than it is to develop athleticism. And so you take him and hope that he eventually turns into like a rich man's Ryan Dunn. And I think a rich man's Ryan Dunn fits very well under this team, and you could argue maybe even better than Paris Webb does. But the problem is, like, we built a team where everybody can shoot and he really can't. And so that gives someone that the defense can play off of and beg to shoot, because he did shoot in that Oregon game that I watched. He just didn't really make all of them. In fact, he didn't make most of them. So do we want to take an offensive prospect, but a project offensively, but get a guy who I think from day one, even though the grades wouldn't say so, the length and athleticism would tell me he's going to be better than Paris Webb on defense day one and can turn into maybe even the best defender on our entire team? All I can say is I'm interested. I'm not 100% in on it, but it piques my interest because we have so many players who can contribute offensively, but it kind of feels like we lack another dog defender. We're hoping Connor Irving turns into just kind of a great defender. But if he doesn't and Tom Nash does, that fills a role for the squad. And perhaps he can even eventually turn into a starter. You know, maybe Jarris Walker becomes our souped-up 6th man, and Tom Nash becomes that primary defender on whoever the opposing team's best wing or forward is, and Nixon guards whoever the other team's best guard is. Could be interesting. So the guy who is maybe my best fit for our team in this class is J.R. Wall. He's a 4-man who has an absolute sniper rifle attached to his body with that right arm. He is excellent from beyond the arc. Maybe the best shooter in this class alongside Eddie Ewing, who's going number 1 overall. 6'9", 230 pounds with a 7'3" wingspan. He is an above average, even good athlete. He flashed some ability off the dribble inside the arc. Doesn't really shoot beyond the arc off the dribble. He's more of a catch and shoot guy there. But he can defend inside and on the perimeter. Forgot to have his clips loop, so it just kind of stopped there. But he's projected to go pretty high in this class as well. His ranks, in fact, have him as the second best player in this class. But his draft projection, I would think, because he's a little bit lower of a starting overall, 4th, 5th, 6th pick, I can see him kind of going in that area. So the guys that are the best fits for us are going to go high. We're talking about Tom Nash and J.R. Wall. Probably the best 1-for-1 replacements for Paris Webb. Now, Tom Nash is more of a combo forward, which is what we currently have Paris Webb play. But J.R. Wall, his secondary position is actually center, which is interesting to me. He just turned 20. He's been 19 for this whole draft process, so he just barely turned 20. He'd be 20 his whole rookie year, pretty much. I think he might actually be a decent replacement for Jalen Williams as well. If we want somebody that instead of playing the 4/3s plays the 4/5. Now, if we were to do that, we'd still have an undersized center because Jalen Williams is also 6'9". He's 240 pounds. So J.R. Wall, we lose 10 pounds on the backup center spot. And I don't know if we want to lose pounds there, but he also has 2 inches more in his wingspan compared to Jalen Williams, 7'1", and he's a much better athlete. Physicals is what they call it in the draft process, but then it changes to athleticism on the roster screen. I don't know why they do that, but we're talking about a guy in the D's with Jalen Williams, upgraded instantly to a B with J.R. Wall. He has Tom Heinsohn All-Star ceiling. He has 2 starting badges, limitless range and shifty shooter, which is kind of ironic because I think he's a much better shooter off the catch right now, at least in the one game that I watched of him, where he got a lot of run, kind of running that Kansas offense, or not running it, but being the focal point of it. If you look at the grades that Paris Webb had at the beginning versus what J.R. Wall had, there's a lot of similarities here. He's a pretty good rebounder. So if we go to the power forward spot to replace Paris Webb, right? So looking at J.R. Wall, other than inside defense where he doesn't really rank high at the position, he's all the way down outside the top 10. Every other spot here, second best mid-range scorer, number 1 3-point scorer, number 2 inside defense, number 2 outside defense, number 5 playmaker, number 1 rebounder, number 1 IQ, number 3 athlete, number 1 potential. He's top 5 every single skill except for inside scoring. And honestly, inside scoring is the one I care the least about because for the most part, if your name's not Will Burke or Ken Nixon, I want you clearing out space in the paint for those guys so that they can drive down there in the case of Nixon, or they can post up in the case of Will Burke, or drive. I want to see Will Burke drive more next year, if I'm being honest. So I honestly think he's a very, very excellent pick. If we're okay keeping kind of an undersized center as our backup guy, ultimately in the playoffs, we're going to keep playing Will Burke 39 minutes, I imagine. So we're talking about 9 minutes. Can a guy play 9 minutes of center? Can he hold up? Can he do it at least as good as Jalen Williams? I think J.R. Wall probably could, honestly. If you compare his stats to Jalen Williams is a decent bit better on the inside scoring. He's an A- mid-range scorer, so within 1 season of development, J.R. Wall will catch him there. J.R. Wall's already better at the three-point shot. Jalen Williams has B+ inside defense, so another one where you're 1 season away from matching him there. Already much better perimeter defender. Jalen Williams is a B- playmaker, so that's one that J.R. Wall might never catch up to him there. And I do like the fact that Jalen Williams can kind of handle the rock a bit and find open man. The other one is rebounding. A- for Jalen Williams. Down to a B for J.R. Wall, and I think rebounding's already kind of tough for us. So I don't like taking hits there. But as far as the power forward, again, that's the best in this class. IQ just always going to develop. I think Jalen Williams is at a B. Physicals, again, he's already clears Jalen Williams a lot. I like J.R. Wall. Where's he going to go, though? Where is he going to go? In terms of if we want like an actual center to replace Jalen Williams, I do want to keep having shooters out on the court. The best shooter is a C+, and he only has D+ rebounding. Not going to work. The next guy is Chaz Matthews. The next guy is Travis Mitchell, who's only 6'10". Now, he does have a 7'5" wingspan, and he's 262 pounds, but he's also 23 years old. So not really a great guy to kind of take a flyer like we did with Irv Henderson. I think we just got to hope Irv Henderson can develop as a rebounder. If we want like a true center to replace Jalen Williams, I think we have a better chance of that happening than picking an actual center in this class. So if we take J.R. Wall and let's say we trade away Paris Webb to do it, that kind of opens up some minutes at the 3. I also think J.R. Wall could honestly, with his perimeter defense and shot, play the 3 by himself. But since it's not listed, there is a guy who was also, funnily enough, not listed as the 3. He's listed as a pure 2. But Simon Campbell, I think, would be a go-to. He's also not going to get drafted very highly. He's ranked in the 30s by 2 of these. NBA.com does have him at 19. And then they have him drafted at 10. But these other 2 think he's going to get drafted in the 30s. So say he gets drafted in the 20s. I think that's a very attainable pick for a developmental guy. Simon Campbell, 6'7", 230 pounds, 7'2" wingspan, 2 badges to start. He's got only a starter ceiling. So you're not getting a lot of upside here. But in terms of, we could also, have Greg Weber play more minutes at the 3 if we don't want J.R. Wall playing there. Could get Jarris Walker some minutes at the 3, I guess, too. So I think there are minutes at the 3 to be had. I don't actually like this small forward class all that much outside of the top player in Eddie Ewing being awesome, of course. It's not a lot of like good 3 and D. You're talking about like Dustin Buchanan, 22 years old, 6'6", but a C- potential out of Utah. You're talking like Antonius Durekas, combo forward. All-star ceiling there, but only a C listed, which is pretty rough. A good playmaker and defender here in Malavi Potter with a B+ potential, so a little bit better, but he can't really shoot to start. It wouldn't be terrible. If you're talking about like what are our tradable assets this year, so in terms of guys that are actually on contract, right? Henry Jennings is on contract. Jalen Williams is on contract. Derek White's on contract. We accepted the team option for Paris Webb, so now he is on contract. Jack Finley is not. Weber is not. Jarris is on contract, but I'm not sure how many players in this draft I'd actually trade Jarris for. Irving's on contract. I'm not trading Irving for anybody in this class. Wilberg's on a team option that will accept and extend this offseason is the plan. And then Ken Nixon's on contract, but obviously we're not trading Ken Nixon for anybody in this class, not even for Ewing, not even close. So you're probably talking about Webb, Williams, Jennings, and White are the tradable players. Picks, we have the 2nd and 12th pick in the 2nd round. The Nuggets and the Reigns selections. And then our only tradable first-round pick is all the way back in 2034. And we also can trade a 2034 second-round pick because that's the year that became available this offseason. So not much in the way of picks. So somebody's going to have to value Webb or Williams. Probably not Jennings. He's probably more of a piece to kind of push a deal over the top than like the centerpiece of the deal. or somebody like Derek White could do that, but I really would like to keep White as a good mentor. He's got a lot of good defensive badges still. Though, of course, if Derek White's going to be what it takes to get a deal done that I want to do, I'm not going to let that be the hang-up. I wish a guy like Henderson was under contract. He might have some value if he's still developing because he's, still young enough and has some badges and could continue to grow. But we're going to have to sign him to retain him this offseason. So there you have it. That is the draft situation. At the top of the drafts, let's go and look at this one more time. I mean, we're talking maybe having to trade with the Wizards or the Nuggets or the Blazers. Maybe the Raptors. I imagine both Nash and J.R. Wall will be off the board by 6. If they're not, that'd be a pretty big boon to us. And I also think we have a better chance of trading for the pick before they're selected than trading for them post-selection, depending on what their potential is. So, do we try to trade up to 4 or 5? 5 could be risky. It could be Eddie Ewing, Chaz Matthews, J.R. Wall, Tom Nash, first 4 picks. If it's not them, like other prospects that could go early that I'm not like as interested in. A guy like Earl Winston, I could definitely see going first. He's just kind of the ball of clay. He is the Hall of Fame ceiling in this class. So the combination of a decently high enough starting overall, 76 plus Hall of Fame, could get him drafted pretty early. I just don't like. I feel like at this point in the series, a guy who's all C's across the board isn't really as valuable. If this was much earlier in the series, sure. I'm looking for more early impact. I think Kostas Papadopoulos could go decently high in this class. Although probably not with starter, but some teams just need center. And he's a good interior center. But he's definitely more of the old school interior only. He does have a 7'7" wingspan though. Devin White's another guy I like in this class. I am interested to see where he goes. If it's late enough that I could pretty much swap Henry Jennings in a second for Devin White, because I think he's just an upgrade over that like emergency guard from injury. I think he's just an upgrade over Jennings there. Glenn Wood could be a guy that goes early. There's the guy that's ranked number 1 by the Sporting News, Darrell Dennis, who has All-NBA ceiling, 6'7", but he's 22 years old, and then another guy who's the kind of the C's across the board guy, right? He's the only A+ though, I think, in this class. Yeah, only A+ that I know of in this entire class. So that'll get him drafted decently high, but usually kind of the lower overall ball of clay guys drop a bit. So and there's a world where the 4 guys that I got clips on are the 4 first players off the board, and in that case, not as likely that we get a trade in. But if a Winston or a Papadopoulos or a Dennis or a Glenn Wood go early, and one of these guys is available at 5, 6, or 7, maybe that's a pick that we can trade for. But let me know your thoughts on this class, who you think would fit in on this team in the comments section. And we'll be back soon to do the off-season soon, and I'll see you then. Fangs out.